that's okay. Laurie
Yes.
Arteaga, we know you,
Yeah.
and you are actually in Fullerton, but people still come anyway,
Yeah.
and you are available to everybody everywhere. And I just looked you up on the internet. It says you're open till 7. Is that real?
You know what? During tax season, yes, but typically on my cell phone, I'm available till 7, sometimes 8 o'clock.
Okay,
So
you're okay.
typically, I just post those hours, but in reality, I work from like 8 to 7. So I'm available for my clients during those hours.
And what number is that?
The phone number to call is 714-773-4000. Again, 714-773-4000. Our website is eliasincometax.com. It's ELIAS incometax.com. And you can go to the Contact Us page and submit your questions there. Either me or Laurie or Elias will get back to you.
No, we want you.
Okay. They can talk to me. Yeah, definitely. So they could, if for whatever reason I don't answer, they can leave a message. I'll get back to them, or email me their questions. So I service all 50 states. So I'm an enrolled agent. And, you know, I could represent clients in terms of audits, collections, tax preparation.
You know, I'm highly enrolled in the IRS myself, but you don't want to know how or why. So
enrolled with them too?
Yeah, I roll out right at the top of their hit list.
I don't think so, Jay.
All right. Well, go ahead with, I'll let you kind of take over for a bit.
Yeah, so I always, come up with a list of topics of some of the important things that I think people should know. So today it's going to be 7 ways to handle your IRS tax debt. So it's really important right now because a lot of people have a lot of tax debt and they're embarrassed or, just don't answer to the IRS sometimes and try to hide.
I'm not embarrassed about what I owe. I'm just pissed.
That too. And you know what? Some people are actually pissed off about it and they just ignore it or they don't take the right steps to actually clear out the debt.
I have found through good history that ignoring it does not work.
Right. Ignoring doesn't. They'll find you.
Yeah, I'm easy to find anyway, but even so, they will find me.
Yeah, no, they will. They find everybody. So they do have a way. So I have part of the 7 list. The first and number 1 would be an offer in compromise. Now, you've heard of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what that does is that allows you to settle your IRS tax debt for lower than the tax balance. So generally, if you're experiencing some sort of financial hardship, you should be able to qualify. But they do look at factors like your income, your expenses, your ability to pay, and also, if you have any assets. The assets will actually hurt you versus helping you when it comes to settling for your IRS tax debt.
Sometimes they come to your door to look at those assets, don't they?
They can, or they have ways to look at your assets. So the reasons you might be disqualified would be for if you have a 401k, that has. So for example, you owe $20,000, and your 401k is also $20,000. Then they'll say you don't qualify. Technically,
or they'll say, "Hey, we found a great use for your 401k."
Can you let them know that? Oh, one moment. I'm sorry, Jay. Of course.
No, that's okay. It's just one of those things because you're busy over there.
Okay. I'm gonna start this. So, another thing is that can also prevent you from qualifying is if you have too much equity in your home. Believe it or not, that actually hurts you in the offer and compromise. Now, it would help you, for example, if you have, you're trying to get a reverse mortgage. Maybe that might help you. It might be an option instead of an offer and compromise because you have too much equity. So that's one thing to talk about. But again, this isn't an offer and compromise isn't something you should do by yourself. I would say seek out a CPA or enrolled agent for that.
Oh, absolutely. I've got some experience with not using the right person. So
right, exactly. So don't attempt. It looks like relatively easy on application, but it's a process that takes 7 to 12 months. So it's something that you should seek a professional to do. The second thing you could do is to request to be currently non-collectible. What that is there's an application called 433F, and it basically details all your financial income and expenses. And with that, they could determine that you just are having a financial hardship, or you currently got laid off and you can't make a payment to them. So typically what they'll do is they will make you non-collectible for 6 to 12 months. So
I was just going to ask how long that lasts.
Yeah. So that's actually a really neat option, especially if you're laid off or you're taking care of a relative.
You can't get uncollectible for 30 years?
No, no. Well, you know what? My last point, I'll come back to that.
Okay.
It will be uncollectible after 10 years. We have that statute of limitations that I'll talk about. The number 3 would be an installment agreement. That's actually relatively easy too. Tax preparer can go online on the IRS's website, create an account, and you could basically put in the monthly amount that you want to pay and the date you want the automatic withdrawal to take place. So again, all of these are options that you have instead of just ignoring them.
Yeah.
So another thing you could do is to release your wage garnishment. Eventually, like we were mentioning, if they find you, they'll garnish your wages. So what happens is that the IRS initially sends you a notice, and if you ignore them on their due date, they'll send you a couple other notices. Eventually, they'll send you a final notice of intent to levy. So with that, if you don't pay them again within 30 days, they will take the proceedings and your garnishment. So you got to be careful about that. But you could stop that if you do the installment agreement, or do an offer in compromise, or try to apply for the non-collectible status. So now, if for whatever reason, let's just say you don't have a job and the intent to levy actually will go into your bank. So number 5 would be to stop the bank levy. So that, again, the same way, if you ignore them, they'll get into your bank account. Again, this is by ignoring them. What they do is that they freeze your assets, or they freeze your bank account. Some people think, and can you hear me okay, Jay?
Yes.
Okay. So what happens is that when they freeze your bank account, you still have a limited time to try to fix it so they can release it. So
yeah, because it happened once, I remember, and it was kind of in limbo for 2 weeks or so. For you, or maybe longer, I don't know, a month, I don't know what it was. But you had X amount of time to protest,
right,
before
exactly.
They actually completed, and it was gone. So
that's correct. Yeah, I always tell people, immediately the moment it gets levied, call your enrolled agent, your CPA, to take care of it immediately, because then the IRS will work with you, and they'll either give you a full release of that frozen assets, or a partial release. And it's better to get something than to be all taken away. So that's important to do. Number 6 would be, now if none of those options work, is you have an option to file bankruptcy. Now, this isn't the most easy option. You do obviously have to be current on all your tax returns. And again, for this, your enrolled agent or CPA wouldn't be able to help you with. You have to seek professional help from a tax attorney or bankruptcy attorney. So, but yeah, that's another option if you qualify, depending on your state eligibility and requirements.
Okay, so what happens if you declare bankruptcy? I know a lot of people that said, I got completely out of all my debt taxes because of bankruptcy. Is that true? Is it still true?
It can be true for some people. It can be, but not necessarily. And you do have to be current on all your year's filings. Again, there are certain requirements, year requirements of when the tax was assessed, and also your income eligibility. So that's why I say for that, you would have to speak to a bankruptcy attorney. Right. To help you see if you qualify. And obviously, if none of the other options work for you and you're settling any of your other debt, credit card debt, you might want to lump that in there as well.
Yeah, well, I think if you're going to do a bankruptcy, do absolutely everything.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely everything. You want to pay somebody? Pay them outside of bankruptcy if you want to. Although I don't think that's even legal, but still.
Right.
Cover everything, because you never know what'll come back to bite you in the you-know-what.
Exactly. So might as well include it. Number 7 would be to ask when your expiration of statute of limitations is up. So you know how we've talked about this statute of limitations, and it's very long. It's a 10-year period that you have to wait out. So, not 30 years, but 10 years.
Yeah, but there's some. I'm here to tell you there's some limitations on that statute of limitations, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they can renew everything and anything they want.
Yeah, and so with the statute of limitations, I tell people if you think you're going to be due a refund, do it within 3 years, because then you don't get it. If it's year 4, year 5, it's too late. But with them, they're able to collect for up to 10 years. And technically, it's not even 10 years. It's 10 years from the date it was assessed. So if you filed a year late, 2 years late, and it might be 12, 13 years before.
Yeah, and then if you do an offer and compromise or something 5 years later, it puts it off to 15 years, right?
Right. Yeah.
So you gotta, if you're not, sometimes people want to start fighting and putting in paperwork to fight the IRS without the right help, and all they're doing is putting their statute of limitations, moving it down the road.
Right.
And a bankruptcy will also, I think, move a statute of limitations. Is that correct or no?
The bankruptcy, I don't believe so, because they're two different things.
Okay.
So, yeah. But
now,
basically, so I just wanted to go over the 7 list. So it's going to be offer and compromise. You got the request to be non-collectible. Number 3, installment agreement.
Non-selectable? Nobody selects me. What do you?
No, non-collectible.
Oh, okay.
So non-collectible, again, that's due to financial hardship. Number 4, release of your wage garnishment. 5, release of your bank levy, or stopping your bank levy from happening. Number 6, file a bankruptcy. And number 7 would be to ask when that expiration of statute of limitations is up. Number 7, I've been using it a lot with my clients. It's usually what happens is that, and it's maybe relatively new clients that had debt from 9 years ago, let's say. So the IRS is actually very helpful in this. You can ask them, when is that 10-year mark up? And they will give you an exact date. And so they'll release that levy or the lien against your property, or, whatever it is, against your tax account. So they'll tell you. So you'll kind of know, okay, I used to owe $15,000, but, it was from 10 years ago. They will drop it once it hits that.
Now, I've seen where once you come to the statute of limitations, they'll turn it over to a judgment or something, and then they've got the next 100 years on you.
Yeah, then that's a whole different story.
Does that happen very often? Or?
No, not very often. Yeah. So that's something more on the exceptional side that happens. Typically, it's just 10 years for the IRS, and then it's 20 years for California, but every state is different.
Yeah, I've been told so many times that California is so much tougher.
Yeah.
I personally didn't find that to be true, but
yeah,
they came after me once for $53,000 or something, which is because, I'm a has-been now, but before it had to do with some kind of a luxury tax or this or that or whatever when I had luxury. Now it's just a luxury not to know me anymore, but it ended up with them apologizing, and they sent me a check for like $50 or something, which I framed.
Oh, that's very nice of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's nice when you get a refund, right?
Yeah, especially when they were after $53,000 for something that didn't really, but they listened. So.
Right. So all these things that I discussed, this is all for the IRS. So if it's for the Franchise Tax Board or your particular state, then, you have to talk to your enrolled agent or CPA of that state, because, the state has another set of requirements for all of these, because the state can very well garnish you or levy you.
Yeah.
Any of these things. So, talk to your tax expert. The point is, just don't ignore them. So, and don't be afraid to talk about it to your tax preparer or your enrolled agent or CPA, because, it's better that you put all the cards on the table. We don't judge. We're just here to help.
And good thing you are.
Yeah, definitely.
So we've got those 7 different ways. So you gotta, I mean, the number one way is talk to somebody like yourself, because you try to do it on your own, and instead of a 10-year limitation, you got a 30-year extension on everything, and it's now so much higher. How much interest do they charge, by the way?
You know what?
Does it vary?
Typically, it does vary, and they do change it. But typically, it's usually always been between 4% and 6% interest. So it's usually on the lower side. But the thing is that it's compounded interest too. So you.
Oh well, what isn't though?
Yeah, so you just have to be careful and at least do something to pay them. So even if you're on non-collectible status, but you get a job again, make sure you call them and get that on that payment plan.
Yeah. So any other tips for what to do about, well, taxes are starting to, God, I hate to say tax season's coming. It's not, well, October tax season's coming, right?
Yeah. Well, you know what? I might as well mention too, because these 2 deadlines are coming up. So it's September 15th deadline, and that's for corporations. So LLCs, S Corps, that's when they're due. And the big October 15th deadline, which is my last busiest day of the year. So you got that personal tax deadline. So there is no such thing as another extension after that deadline. That's the last.
Without 6 or 10% interest plus penalties.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I said, you can get it extended as long as you add on penalties and 6 to 10% interest.
Right, exactly. So yeah, those are the 2 last tax deadlines, and then God willing, November, December, I could take a little bit of time off.
All right.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question. I'm just curious. How big a percentage of people actually do their filing in October rather than April? Uh-oh. Well, Sean, you go ahead and answer that.
Okay, yeah, everybody's not going to want to hear me, I'm sure.
Yeah, anyway, I'm here again. You can try her in the background there, can't you?
Yeah, I will.
Yeah, he will. And in the meantime, I do my taxes in October. It just kind of started that way 20, 30 years ago. I did it once, and then, well, if you don't keep doing it, then you got to do your taxes in 6 months instead of another year. So once you take that step, it's almost as if you're always on that step. So that's how you go. So you got to stick, put your thing in at the right time. Hold on just a second. I got Laurie calling me. Yes, ma'am. I'm still talking on the air, so Laurie's got me on the phone right now, and she's telling me that her phone died. So she had done this Skyping on her phone, which looked great, I thought. So let me just ask you a couple questions here, and then I can just relate them, okay? So Sean, if you want to put my picture back on, I have a phone in my ear. But if not, you can treat the watchers to not have to look at me at all. But we were talking about, the percentage of people who actually pay their taxes in October rather than April. No, it's not too many. People. Oh, okay. Yeah, and we've talked before about don't aim for a refund. Don't give them more money than you should be spending that money. Yeah, I mean, how much, you said 6 to 8% is what you pay them. How much do they pay you? 6 to 10? Yeah, how much do they pay? I'm sorry, 6. Yeah. Oh, you know what? You know what, Laurie? If you're on a phone right there, you could call in the station. And we don't have much time left, but what the heck? 951-922-3532. Okay, bye. That's okay. It's nice to have surprises anyway, right? So we'll get Laurie back, and we'll ask her a couple of those things. We were talking, if I can remember, because, you know, pretty old. I don't remember nothing about what we were talking about. You're on, huh?
Hey, yeah. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, now everybody can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so we were just kind of talking about the percentage of people that file late or, you know, by the October 15th deadline, and it's not that many. I think because most people have already gotten the refunds or paid their tax liability and don't want to run into more tax penalties or interest, you know, after that April 15th deadline. So most people try to finish it by that date. But yeah, it's a much smaller percentage. But then, you know, I will have those clients that'll call me October 15th or October 14th and expect a miracle. So yeah, that creates a lot of stress on my end.
Isn't that what we want? Miracles?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I get paid for, I guess, but it does create a lot of stress over here.
Now you're talking. Now, I was saying, too, that I do mine in October because 20, 30 years ago, I did it one year in October. And then it seems like once you've done that, unless you're ready to do taxes 6 months later, every year, I mean, if you want to wait a year between taxes, you're stuck to October for the rest of your life.
Right.
So, but the other part of what I was saying is, you know, people want to do it early so they get their refund. They shouldn't be getting a refund. They shouldn't be, you know, they shouldn't be lending the government all that money. And you're saying 4 to 6% is what we pay them. What do they pay us for the money we're lending them?
I mean, very little, Jay. I mean, it's almost nothing. So, yeah, it says that maybe claim more exemptions on your, you know, W-4 form with your employer. Again, this is something to discuss with your taxpayer of how many exemptions you could claim, because maybe you do have a lot of tax credits because of your children or
I mean, you don't want to claim too many because you don't want to end up owing them.
Right. So there is a balance you could strike.
Yeah.
So, yeah, definitely you can do that. So, again, that's something to discuss with your taxpayer so you don't have to end up with such a huge refund, but be able to use that money throughout the year.
Yeah, because, you know, that refund is not extra money.
Right. It's basically, it's really your own money.
Yeah, it's your money that you loaned the government. Hooray. You are a very patriotic person. You just loaned the government several $1,000s.
Right, unless you're in... Oh, okay.
For nothing.
Right.
So, Laurie, it's National Comedian Day. Who's your favorite comedian, or do you have... Yeah, now, Sean and I, what did we say?
George Carlin.
That's right. We put George Carlin up there.
Oh, yeah. No, of course. He is definitely one of the best. I can't say I have one. I mean, I like a lot of them. I like a lot. I mean, I do love Dave Chappelle. He's one of my top favorite comedians, but I have quite a bit. So I don't know. I can't think off the top of my head.
That's all right. Don't worry. I can't think from any part of my head. But thank you so much. I'm going to sign off with one more joke. Thanks, Laurie. Thanks, Sean. Thanks, everybody that's listening. Again, from Henny Youngman, my boss told me to have a good day, so I went home. And that's what I'm going to do now, is sign off. So remember, Kaplan will be here on the same corner in front of the cigar store next week. And have a great weekend.